At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to update COVID-19 and also to consider an emergency resolution for the superintendent regarding the COVID-19 concerns. So at this time, Dr. Oates.
Madam Chair and board members, good morning. Wanted to take an opportunity to update all of you on some of the things that the system has done in response to COVID-19. What I intend to do is go through several of our departments and just give you an update of how things have rolled out since school has closed since last week. One of the largest areas of concern upon closure was making sure that our students were able to receive nutritious meals. As you're aware, we've used our three traditional high school sites for breakfast and lunch pickup this week. Monday started with lunch only, and then the rest of the week has been both breakfast and lunch. Meals were prepared by our staff and brought out in cars. No one went into the buildings to eat food. But as of yesterday, we had 6,482 meals that have been served by our child nutrition department. In addition to that, we have other community partners working with us to provide meals to students as well. And one of the things I want to do is I want to commend our child nutrition department. 2 weeks ago at least, Mr. Parker and his folks had already had a skeleton plan in place just in case something like this was to occur. So once we did get notification of school closure, it was not a problem at all for him and his staff to enact the plan that they had prepared for. When Cabinet and I met here, we had Mr. Parker on the phone, and my question to him is, Mr. Parker, do you have a plan for feeding the kids? And he said, you don't have to worry about it, we have a plan. And he talked us through the plan, and this is what it ended up being, which has worked well. So I definitely want to commend him and all the child nutrition staff that have been working to ensure that students are being fed during this time. There has also been concern about students over the weekends being fed as well. You know, we're doing the Monday through Friday. However, we do have students who have been receiving backpacks on the weekends. We have 767 students who receive weekend backpacks, and our community partners are working with us as well to ensure that they are able to provide those to them. Actually, right now as we speak, there's some that are going on in the county. So that is definitely encouraging to hear through child nutrition. Instruction. How are we going to continue to keep the minds of our students activated and engaged during this time? Executive Order number 117 from the governor does not mandate that remote or distance learning opportunities for students be offered between March 16th and March 30th. However, we understand that that is the right thing to do. Although the governor didn't mandate it, we are trying to make sure that we are providing means of instruction, supplemental instruction to our students during this time. We cannot require the students to participate in the remote learning activities, but we want to be able to give them the opportunity to continue with activities during this time, and we're definitely relying on parents to devote some time during the day that their students can continue learning through the means that we're providing for them. I can't speak highly enough about our teachers. These folks have been given almost no notice of changing means and of instruction, going from the classroom and prepared lessons that they've been doing for years, and now having to provide supplemental instruction through digital means. For some, it's been a learning curve, but it's been difficult for everyone. But they have stepped up to the plate, and many of our teachers have created video lessons to review and continue forward with the delivery of instructional methods. So I applaud their efforts. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that the teachers have done, even before the closure, March 13th through the 15th, multiple teams working with our instructional technology team and teachers had a device checkout plan meeting where multiple teams worked together across central services and the schools to ensure that any student in need of a device would have access to one through a checkout process this week. This week, elementary and middle school teachers have been independently communicating through Clever, through Google Classroom, and Class Dojo this week with families. Schools that had parents or had students that did not have internet access provided school worksheet packets and books for students to use. And next week we're planning basically a large-scale PLC, but we're breaking it down, of course, to implement the social distancing, and we're having fewer than 10 groups of teachers who have volunteered to come in and plan and send out instruction for the next 5 days that the teachers can utilize and students can utilize. So this will help in having a quality of service and support teachers who may be sick and unable to regularly communicate with their students. So these folks are coming in on Monday. Ms. White has organized them. I think we're going to be meeting at Bolivia and South Brunswick Middle School to ensure that this takes place. Again, this was voluntary. Sent a survey out who was any teachers who were willing to come out and do this planning period for teachers and students across the district, basically setting them up in grade levels. So all first grade folks would be together, second grade folks and so on would be in a planning process in order to push out instruction to the students in the district.
Is the plan to push out instruction to go forward or in review?
So for next week, it'll be still in the review period, and then we'll get guidance after that when we.
Well, I have some real concern about moving forward because I don't mind telling you, I had a conversation with my daughter. 15 of her 70 kids are actively involved. That's it. So if she's got 55 kids, didn't pick up a Chromebook, aren't online, how can you go forward under those circumstances?
Well, I think part of that goes back to what we said from the beginning. We can't mandate it. So if we know
I
we
realize
can't
that.
mandate it, there's no need to look to go forward. I think it's more so of an
That was my
enrichment
question.
supplement.
I can see continual review and concepts that are difficult and things like that, but to think that the school system can move forward, and that's not uncommon with what I just quoted in the district, that we're spinning wheels to try to move forward with a handful of kids.
I don't think there's been a message to move forward.
That's what you just said.
No, I said we don't have guidance from DPI.
I realize that part, but I said, are you doing just review or are you moving forward? You
I
said
said-
you're doing both.
No, I said for next week, so what we're doing Monday is review and getting activities together, and then I said then we'll decide after the next decision is made where we'll go after that.
You know what's sad though, Ed? We're providing this for kids at home. And, I know this is new territory for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, for the parents, for us, for the teachers, for everybody. But if we're providing the resources, I would hope that the parents would step up and get these resources that we're providing to get their kids engaged in the.
Well, Charlie, it reminds me yesterday of seeing those
crazy.
kids at the beach getting drunk with the nation under this
I know.
situation.
I know.
So responsibility may be out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty. So
I think you'll see more participation from the elementary and the middle.
I just
of course.
don't want to go all over the place with this. That we zero in on what we're going to do as long as we're under these circumstances, and concentrate on that. And forms that we're using not change every week, and so forth and so on. For documentation that you're working, and each school doing something differently in documentation, and
That was actually, that's systematic for next
Yeah,
week.
we have something that's systematic across all schools in the district.
Are those the
Now-
forms that you sent
Right,
out
and we'll
with
cover,
the email?
and we'll cover those in just a minute.
And I do have some concerns
Okay.
about those. I'll bring that up in a little bit.
Okay.
And I don't mind telling you, I've talked to my daughter. She's doing it from home. She's had about 60% of her class participating. But, so,
different school.
different school.
Continue on with exceptional children. I know there's been a question as to what we're going with exceptional children. We've been working with staff to push out online resources for families and students. We're working with district planning team to plan for educational resources, to push out this on an ongoing basis, and have begun developing a potential long-term plan for virtual learning to provide EC services in the event that it is needed. Again, finalizing this plan, it will be contingent upon any state guidance that we receive regarding confidentiality and the virtual platform. So we're still waiting on that. This is in process on a state level with the EC division. And again, more guidance on that will be forthcoming. Again, concerns have been brought about students receiving mental health services during this time. Meredith Lloyd has shared community mental health resources, and Mr. Siemens has been able to add that to our resources online that we've been communicating. Social workers identified local food pantries that will assist when students do not have transportation, so they can access community food services. Social workers are also contacting families and sharing that information. In addition to that, we've asked parents that don't have transportation to come to our sites to get food if they would call into the schools and make it known that they don't have transportation, that they can't come out to the schools to pick it up. And once we have gathered that information, we'll be able to devise a plan in order to get food to them. But we definitely need the information. They have to let us know the need is there before we can do that.
Terry,
Yes.
excuse me, do we have like a hotline set up for?
We don't have a
Parents?
hotline set up for parents. We just have them calling each individual
School.
And
Okay.
we
They're
have staff,
homeschool.
right, and we have staff there that will be able to get the number to call.
Picking up food and a list of kids who don't have a Chromebook or a packet, can that be done simultaneously?
It can be.
You mean just issue it with the food when they drive through to pick up the food?
Well,
Just-
if X number of kids aren't picking those things up or don't have them, and things like iReady and so forth are available on the Chromebook and that kind of stuff that they can use, or Ms. White can incorporate, why wouldn't we take advantage of that delivery with the Chromebook or a packet of instructional material?
All right.
Don't they have to have internet for a Chromebook though? Chromebook won't function without internet, so if you don't have it at home.
Let me say something about that, Mr. Benton. My son works for AT&C. He's on the business side. They moved him Monday to the residential side to get in there and get these homes set up for the use of the students during this time. And
At no cost.
at
Yeah,
no cost for.
Yeah, it's Time Warner as
yeah.
well.
Well,
It's
so-
Spectrum.
Yeah.
Spectrum.
Mhm.
So we just need to make sure we're advertising those numbers for AT&C and
Yeah,
Spectrum.
Daniel has them
It's
out.
out.
Okay.
So that
And maybe
really, it'll
attach
take
something
them
to
a
the
few
Chromebook on
days,
how to get the
you know,
internet.
but really, in the long term, they should have that up and running pretty
Instructions on
soon.
the Chromebook.
Can we do packets and all that
If
too?
you don't have internet, this is how you can get
Or,
it.
you know, that's the big thing, is getting
Put it right
packets
Tape it on there, yeah.
now.
That's a good idea too, yeah.
So we've kind of touched on the K-8 side of instruction and student services, but as far as high school, again, commending the teachers that are working with their students as well. Many of the teachers had already been using Google Classroom to provide instruction. That has continued. In addition to communicating with students through Google Classroom, they updated their websites, providing an online syllabus, creating assignments in an online format that's accessible by students with their internet access and computer access. And that's something that I want to mention as well. Many of the schools have expressed that calls have come in that they can't get into our system to operate. Students log in every day, and the same login that students use at school would be the same login the students would use at home in order to get in. So I wanted to make sure parents understood that some technical difficulties, if they call and say we can't log in, and I don't want to say it, but the students know how to log in.
Right.
And just ask them to log in as they would at school, and that would prevent a lot of technological issues.
And a lot of teachers have. I know my daughter has been, she actually went to school to work with the parents to communicate with them through Dojo and that type of thing, to get them set up to log in. And also she's been addressing those concerns from home. Because, she's that type of teacher. Parents have her phone number, they can call her at any time if they have a concern. And we have many, many, many more teachers
We do.
like that, and I am
We
very
do.
proud of our teachers for stepping up during this time.
We have teachers utilizing software such as Zoom and again, Google Hangout to work with students. They're making their own teaching videos, and they post it for discussion boards and those types of things. So individually, teachers at the high school level particularly are pretty much focusing on their classes and ensuring that their students are being able to get some reinforcement work, some supplemental work for them.
Do you know the participation we're having at high school level?
I don't right offhand.
Are we looking at the
There's no my
exam
goal is
for
working hard.
the exam forgiveness like Wake was looking at? So if you're a senior, you have all your credits already, and you have one class holding you maybe, that we can grant them their.
I just talked with Mr. Cheers yesterday, and one of the concerns I have is about our seniors and getting them to graduation. We're exploring the possibility of giving our seniors the opportunity that they can take their core classes through North Carolina Virtual Public School. Again, that would be an opportunity for them to do it. Can't mandate it, can't make them do it, but we could definitely look at exploring having them get the opportunity to go into to that platform so they can at least finish their cores. And keep in mind, the minimum for graduation is 22 credits. So we're looking if the possibility, I know a recommendation has been made through the school superintendent's association, that if a student has met the 22 minimum requirement, the possibility, again, it's a possibility, it is a proposal. I don't want it to be construed that I'm saying that this will be the case, but if they met the minimum requirement of 22, it may be a possibility that students could potentially graduate with that. But that has not been, again, that has not been approved.
I think Wake was going to waive exams. If you have an A average, you get an A on your exam and basically grant the credit for those, because there's a handful of students. I guess you could still enroll in college right now virtually.
Right.
And basically leave at the midway point and to reduce the number of students overall in the system as well, which gets them moving on
Right.
on their next trajectory if they're ready.
Moving to technology, we've spoken a little bit about that. As of lunchtime yesterday, we have checked out 3,481 devices. 3,481 across the district. And of course, these were provided to students who expressed a need for them. Many of our students already have devices in their homes. So these 3,481 were for those who did not. So we got those out early in the week. 95% of these devices were the devices that were slated for replacement this year, for July 2020. So they're not the newer devices, but they can still serve the same purpose. When students return to school, we have a check-in process for each device. We'll clean them and record the damage, record the condition of them. Any damage or loss will be assessed based on the value of the device at that time. And in talking with Ms. Dixon yesterday, we do, with insurance, if anything were to happen, we would be fine.
That's the least of my worries.
And this again is from Ms. Dixon.
So we
Yes.
really don't know out of the kids who actually need devices, how many picked them up and how many didn't.
No, we have no way of knowing who.
How many don't have them and can't get there to get them?
And if 3,481, that's roughly what, a third of our kids? We've got 12 something.
12,000.
So, a fourth, so,
Has the individual schools sent out like the robocalls that with announcements about how to get this and?
I don't know if the individual schools have, Daniel.
No.
We have, and individual schools have been doing different things, like West opened up a little lengthier time frames. So they've been, I don't know if phone calls went out, but I know that they've been reaching out to their students.
Might be a message that we want each school to do, how they, call their groups and just let them know if you do need this device.
And we did the device checkout early in the week, Monday and Tuesday. But schools have been given flexibility to open it up if they need to extend that. They have staff on campus that can do that. So there's still an opportunity for those to get it. And I understand the concern about the transportation piece, which is why we want to make sure that if they can't get devices, we understand they also can't get food. That's why it's necessary for folks to call in and let us know that the need is there, so we can address that need.
I know it's archaic, but as Ed was saying, some of these people might not even have the internet to know. Do we even consider mailing out letters to folks? I mean, this is just such an unprecedented time. I mean, if people don't have access to get any information, they may not even have a phone to get the all-call. I mean, is it even worth trying to communicate in every possible way that we can? Because someone may just be sitting there, and these parents they're shutting down everything. People are going to be at home. They can't work. They can't go
Well,
anywhere.
California just announced
The
this
mail,
morning
as far
they're
as I know, the
sheltering in
mail's still
place.
running.
The
I
entire
mean, I don't know
state.
if that's even,
Locally, still
if
the
nothing
same
else, just a
day.
word of encouragement in the mail, because that's going to be about the only contact some people have for a while. I mean, I don't know if that's even a possibility, or just archaic. Anyway,
What are you learning from other districts? I know you've probably been on superintendent calls.
All week.
Is everybody kind of doing what we're doing, or are we?
There are some districts that are doing different things. Some districts have made this week mandatory work days. Some have made them all remote learning days. I have a spreadsheet with every district in the state, and pretty much consistent, but there are some things that are going different ways. For the most part, however, many districts are doing what we're doing. We're doing optional work days and trying to make sure that our staffs have an opportunity for work. Some of your districts in the west, out in the mountains, their situation's different as far as, with ours. So they're doing things differently as well that would work for them. Is there a consistency? The only consistency that I see is that everybody's asking everybody for what you're doing. That's the consistency. Everybody right now is in the same boat. It's a little different in that. I've had this conversation with someone yesterday. Southeast North Carolina, we know how to deal with hurricanes. Folks in the West know how to deal with snow. No one knows how to deal with COVID-19. And that's kind of where we are. So every step we make is in the dark.
At what point do we start requiring, can we require enrollment or participation in some sort of education? Because the kids of the county can't afford to not, I mean, this 2 weeks is killing us already, but start April 1st, if we don't go back, are we going to have the authority to truancy people who aren't involved?
I don't think so.
I mean, we can't promote children to the next grade level if they lose 3/4 of a year or half a year of education. The kids need to learn. I mean, we're hurting the kids here.
And that's one of the questions that was on, one of the different proposals from the State Superintendent's Association. And that question has been raised. What will we do about student promotion? What about graduation? And once we receive guidance, we will be able to make some decisions on that. But right now, we don't know. We just don't know.
PC services, are they being delivered remotely because they're via teleconference, Skype, whatever?
Well, no, they're not. And I say that, we're putting resources out there for students. Again, nothing is being, if we were mandating or if students were required to participate, then we would have to provide the services for them to be able to do that. But since they're not required, we're not doing that any direct services for EC that I'm aware of.
Okay. It's a homebound as well, it's not, that was in that email, they're no longer providing those.
Right.
We're doing a packet drop now. And we have a plan in place to get those services, because this is a time where it's kind of like we're on pause, where we can make up some
And this
room.
is why when folks gather Monday, planning for the for instruction, that's a piece of it as well. Want to talk through the employment guidance that we've given out to the staff yesterday, and I'm going to ask if Ms. Cahill and Mr. Foster would join and kind of walk through this with you. We met virtually with principals yesterday. We had all principals on a Google Hangout meeting, and we went over this because there have been numerous questions that have been raised regarding employment. And we have consulted with other districts, and what we've gathered is our larger districts, Durham is using something similar. I think this was from Durham or New Hanover and some of the pieces from Guilford. So, Mr. Foster.
Yeah, so basically this week was to give us an opportunity to figure out what we needed to do. And so for the upcoming week, we've established normal operating hours, 8 to 4, that the building should be available and open with at least someone to answer phones and take anything that's coming in, like a shipment or anything like that. All of our employees, we've developed remote work expectations and a consistent procedure for anybody that is able to work from home to request to be able to work remotely, to indicate what they're doing and to log their work, so that at the end of the week we've got documentation as to who did what, and supervisors have been provided that information. Basically, all of our employees have these options. They can work at their current job site. They can come in. They can take appropriate or available leave. They can take leave without pay, or they can work remotely with the approval in the process that we've put out there for next week. For those nobody will be required to work remotely at this point. They've given the opportunity. Some employees, as you know, there's no way they can work from home. A bus driver can't drive a bus from home. A child nutrition worker can't cook meals from home. So we are providing opportunities for those folks at their current sites, having them come into those sites, basically cleaning and groundskeeping types of functions that are being provided for those folks to be able to come in and do, and they will be paid at their current rates of pay. So if they're a child nutrition worker that currently is scheduled to work 4 hours a day and be paid at $12 an hour, they are eligible to come in and do some of these other duties, these cleaning and groundskeeping duties, for 4 hours a day at their regular rate of pay. Okay? And that would go with bus drivers and those types of employees as well. Teacher assistants, we've asked that they report to their schools and their administrators for work assignments, and we've given a lot of information to the principals as to possible things that they could do if they can't work from home. What are the types of things that they could do if they can work from home? What are some professional development things they could do, those types of things. So we provided some guidance and some assistance there, but we're also asking that the site-based administrators use their imagination a little bit in regards to some of the things that teacher assistants can help with at their schools. We did have a question about the split positions, like those folks, some that work like 5 hours as a teacher assistant and 3 hours as a bus driver, and how their pay would be done. Again, it's as if they work their regular assignments. If they work 8 hours doing these other things that we're asking them to do, then they would be paid the 5 hours of TA pay and the 3 hours of bus driver pay. If they take leave with pay, they get paid as if they were at work with 5 hours of TA pay and 3 hours of bus driver pay. We are asking, or actually saying, that no non-staff should not be in our facilities. That includes students and families of staff, unless there's a legitimate reason, and then it should be for a minimum amount of time.
What's our long-term plan for this? If this goes on, let's just say another 2 to 4 weeks, you can only clean the building, clean the grounds so many times with, like, especially the elementary schools who are swimming in TAs, and they can only do so much at home because it's just not their job to be doing things virtually or at home. Are we are you working with Sue's department to try to find them things elsewhere?
Well.
Move campuses with them, send them to another?
It's a moving target, and we are adjusting as we get into this thing. And there's, just last night, the federal government approved the House bill in regards to extension of emergency paid sick leave and FMLA, and also $1 billion towards additional unemployment benefits. So all of those things are things that we're reading and diving into as soon as we can to try to see how that's going to affect us. But if we stay shut down for an extended period of time, we may not be able to provide work to everybody. I don't know that at this point. And if so, then we will fall back into the unemployment and providing those opportunities and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep people with having some monetary income so that they can continue to
Mr.
live.
Bennett's correct. And to me, if you're going to be in school all of next week, one of the things you might consider doing is scrubbing and waxing the cafeteria again, just like we do in the summertime.
That's what we're doing.
Okay. So that the worst, very worst areas in the school get concentration right now.
That's exactly what's happening.
Good point. Okay.
That's what's happening.
I mean, there's a lot of angst about this with the
Absolutely.
classified. The teachers know that they'll be taken care of. The General Assembly always steps up for teachers. The classifieds always feel like they're the last thought. And then I got stopped at Piggly Wiggly yesterday on my great toilet paper hunt, and we laughed, but I got stopped by somebody, one of our custodians, who said, "Jerry, I'm worried. I know that the buildings aren't going away, so my job's fine, but what about the bus drivers? If we go virtual for the rest of the year, are these people all going to be laid off?" And I said, "I don't have an answer for you because we're not going to have work, and can we pay taxpayer dollars? I don't know." And that's the big concern is, and remember, they're not going to max out the unemployment and have a livable amount of that because it's based off a percentage of your pay. So.
Well, the new guidance, it may be a little bit different
Okay.
than that, and I can speak to that a little bit. I just have read it overnight, so please don't hold me to the details of it, but I can try to speak to some of the things that have come forth just overnight in regards to that. The last thing in regards to this was just that at this point, early college is on spring break next week, so that stays in place, and we've not made any decisions in regards to spring break for the regular traditional folks. So we're telling folks we've not changed that at this point, but if that does get changed, we'll let folks know as soon as possible. We did create specific remote work procedures that we shared out with all of the staff last evening, very specific in regards to what's required, how you do this, and that it is voluntary. It's not something that's mandated. Nobody has to do this, and that either party, if I choose to, as the supervisor of somebody on my staff, if I have reason for them that I need them to not be telecommunicating, I can stop that. But we've sent out the work logs, we've sent out the requests so that we will have consistency across the district in how this process is being done.
Is this consistent with what the state's doing?
Well, the state didn't provide anything. The state just
So y'all
said
came
you
up with
can
this.
do it. And so we have worked with other districts to,
Right.
and, combined our thinking, just like the superintendents do and the finance officers do, and you guys do with school board members, to come up with the process. So it is, a lot of districts will be doing something very similar to this, I would think.
We're going through our needs list as well. Like the West, I believe, had some clearing they need, like I think a tree fell or something needed to
They're
be.
doing what he said, and they're working on the dirtiest areas of the school, including the cafeteria. That's very proactive, I think.
Yeah.
And I think what Ms. White has set up for next week is very proactive for
Is-
the educational side of things. So.
Is this the actual form that teachers are receiving?
Yes,
Okay.
yes it is.
And they will complete this on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, and
they
the
just need that
supervisors
little-
get it on
They
a
just
week.
need to fill in that little tiny block about what they're doing?
No, it goes on each line. So like they keep track of for the day, they put the date in there and any of the activities they're doing and how long that they worked on those
So
activities.
the
And this is
numerals
per day
refer to
or per
hours or
They can make copies.
activities? The numerals refer to hours or activities?
Activities.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of it in that way. Because over on the right side, it indicates if it's a half day or whole day for exempt folks or the number of hours that they work. So I was just assuming, because we developed it, you know, if you develop something, you just assume everybody thinks of it in the same way that you do. So it is a list of the various things that you do and how long you did those things, just to track. So we've got something that documents what they're doing.
You turn this in every Friday to your principal?
That's right. And some principals are saying, I would like for them to turn it into me daily. It's okay, as long as we have it at the end of the week. That's the main thing I want to have, and then whatever the schedule is for the next week, so that we have clear expectations.
I don't know if I mean, you've got one school doing it this way, one doing it that way. I think you just need to say, turn it in every Friday.
That's the guidance is, you do it, you get it turned in each week.
Yeah, because, I mean, earlier in the week, I was getting calls from this school, this school, and there was kind of, I mean, everybody was up in the
I
air
got
on
you.
Monday, but,
And they
We
were,
need
we
to-
were too.
yeah, yeah.
And
The
I
whole
think
world
it's
is.
fair to say those of us who've been in education know consistency is key.
That's right.
Just
And
like
that's the
with
reason that
anything
we
like
try-
discipline or, you know, any other areas of the classroom management and that sort of thing. You need that consistency.
And that's kind of what bit us a little bit this week. I mean, because I heard you say about different folks keeping track of things differently at different schools. That's what this is to do, is to provide that consistency. We just it took us a minute to get it pulled together.
And that was going to be my question. I had referenced earlier that I had some questions with regard to how the teachers were documenting their work remotely.
So if it suits you, I can highlight just a couple of things in regards to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act that the federal government approved effective for April 2nd, beginning April 2nd. It deals with emergency paid sick leave, emergency FMLA, and the additional unemployment insurance benefits. Would you like me to just hit some high points on that so far? For emergency paid sick leave to all full and part-time employees who are unable to work. For full-time, it's 80 hours of paid sick leave, and for part-time, it's up to the number of hours they would normally work over a 2-week period. So if I'm a 20-hour-a-week person, I would be eligible for up to 40 hours of sick leave as a part-time employee for this emergency paid sick leave. The items for items 1 through 3, which are basically anything that has to do with the employee being quarantined, isolated, self-quarantined, or experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, they would be eligible for the lesser of their regular rate of pay up to $511 per day for those paid sick days, and that's guaranteed by the federal government. For those items for caring for other individuals who are self-isolating, or a son or daughter whose school has been closed or daycare has been closed, they can receive the lesser of 2/3 of their regular rate of pay for this paid leave, or up to $200 a day. So those are the two different categories associated with this emergency paid sick leave. So it does provide some relief for employees that need to stay home to take care of their children because daycares and schools are closed down. The FMLA, emergency FMLA provisions do the same thing for sons and daughters, or for employees who need to stay home to care for sons and daughters because their school or daycares have been closed. The major changes here, in order for an employee to qualify, basically they have to have been employed with us for at least 30 calendar days. The regular FMLA, it's a lot different than that. So that frees it up to a lot of folks. It's primarily, for employees who have a need for leave to care for their son or daughter if their sites have been closed down. The first 10 days or the first 2 weeks of that leave can be unpaid, but the thought is, or the anticipation is, that they'll use those 10 days of emergency paid leave for those first 2 weeks. And then after the first 10 days, this leave is to be paid at the lesser of 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, or $200, the same as that other one for the emergency paid leave, up to not to exceed $10,000 in aggregate. So those two things should provide some relief to employees across the nation who need to stay home and take care of their children.
But they have to be employed about at least 30 days?
Yes, in order to be eligible for those.
How many do you have any idea how many we have that's less than that?
I don't. I haven't checked that yet. But there, I mean, certainly, you guys, our board report has not been as big recently as it would at the beginning of the year, so it should be a relatively small number of employees. In regards to unemployment insurance benefits, basically an additional $1 billion is being put into unemployment insurance benefits across the nation. And that will deal with if, in fact, we get to the situation where we do have to lay off, or we not necessarily lay off, but we just have people taking time without pay, furloughs, if you will, whatever that word is, but just any time that they're going to be without pay, then they could possibly be eligible or would be eligible for the unemployment. And we've got some additional requirements to ensure that folks are notified of this and that they have ways of applying for it and that type of thing. So that's just a brief review.
Are our curriculum people making those online modules that Molly uses with Ms. Damon to try to get some more training into them while they're working from home, especially the TAs who don't usually get that?
That's what we talked about yesterday here when the cabinet met, and looking to provide opportunities for teacher assistants and specifically to use online venues for professional development. So I think that is going to be developed, if not already developed, some things that they can do. I know I sent an email to cabinet yesterday that came from, I think it was the North Carolina Teacher Assistants Association, and they had some things that were on there as well that they could do. So those are being pushed out for them to be able to do that and use it as professional development.
Well, some of our mandatory training from the General Assembly that we're required, can we put those online and send those out so work days later in the year, if we ever go back, can be
You can get them.
pulled back?
Okay. That's all of the information that I have at this time. Keep in mind that I'm on several conference calls all during the week. Superintendents have a designated Wednesday call with deputy state superintendents. Again, with Brunswick County emergency calls that are on, and then also the Southeast Region Association for Superintendents as well. So as I get information, which hasn't changed much in the last few days, I try to push it out as quickly as I can. And I just want to also take an opportunity to commend my staff. These folks have been phenomenal. Coming in on Sundays and Saturdays at a moment's notice when I call a meeting to meet here at this table. Folks out in the yard working, stopping what they're doing, come out and meet and devise a plan as the need arises. They have been nothing less than phenomenal, and I wanted to just openly appreciate all of you for the work that you have done and continue to do for our employees and for our children. So thank y'all.
I would like to speak to that as well, Dr. Oates. This is the epitome of Brunswick County strong. This is when our people come together and do what needs to be done, especially in circumstances such as these where we are forming new procedures and we are new groundwork. So that is extremely important, and you folks here at Central Services as well as all of our employees, thank you. Thank you so much for putting our children first.
And I just say, because this is so unprecedented, I don't think that we're really able to make decisions that we need to make. Because my son is at the Citadel in Charleston. He has just been told not to come back to school for the rest of the year. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, mine was told yesterday not to come back to Florida.
This is just the beginning. So, we're developing all these plans and everything, but we can't guarantee that we can even get food. We're talking about basics. We're just having to look at the essentials. And education is paramount, but family survival has got to come first. And I'm almost of the opinion, and it's just a personal opinion, it doesn't have anything to do with it, is that if nobody needs to be at the schools, let everybody stay home. They work remotely, that's fine, but as far as, we're just looking at next week. I know we can only do what we can do. But I'm like Mr. Benton, if nobody's at the school, we don't need to have anybody at school cleaning if there's nobody cleaning. Obviously keep the air running so you don't get mold. But I think we're looking at something that nobody's ever seen and that we're gonna have to just live day to day. Toilet paper being, I don't know how that happened, but anyway, how that started. But this is not anything that anybody's ever lived through. And people are dying, obviously. I think if we do what we're told initially and help everybody to stay in their homes, although they don't want to, then we're gonna probably be able to see this end sooner. But if we don't adhere to the standards and guidelines, even though they may sound crazy, this is gonna prolong. Every day is something different, I know. And I know everybody's trying to do it, we can do the Zoom, we can do webinars, we can do all this stuff, but we just gotta function. Because people in their minds don't know what to do. And that's what's leading people to go out and do crazy stuff, in the grocery stores. Thank God for the grocery store workers. I stopped and thanked them yesterday because they're the ones beating off people to get supplies. But I know education obviously is paramount, but I don't think we can plan spring break. I don't think we can plan graduation. We can't plan tomorrow because it's just so unprecedented. But I trust y'all have all the resources to make all the decisions. I came back from the Charlotte airport the other night and I took a picture of all the buses at the Charlotte Mech bus port sitting there. It was just kind of a stark realization that, this is not anything like we've ever seen. But I trust the government officials, and the DHSS and all those people that are telling us what to do. We just need to do what they tell us to do.
And you're right. We've got to follow the guidelines of what we're being told by our local health director, our state, federal. I rode by a store this morning and the parking lot was jammed full of cars. So people just have to. We're not going to flatten the curve unless we listen to what we're being told. So,
Let me just add also.
as long as our kids are safe and families are surviving, that's the main thing right now. If we can teach some, that's great. But if we get to the point where we can't, then hey, let's get everybody through it and we'll catch up later somehow.
One of the things I think that I hope that will come out of this is a new appreciation for our teachers.
Absolutely.
Again, and I started with this and I'll end with this. The teachers that we have here in this system go beyond what is required. They go far beyond the call of duty, and they give of themselves every day in the classroom. They are now doing this exponentially by doing what they're doing at home, in the midst of keeping their own children, in the midst of maintaining their own households. They are still attempting to provide some level of educational engagement for the students of Brunswick County Schools, and I applaud each and every one of them.
I agree completely.
So let me ask you, Ms. Cook, are you alluding to a suggestion that all education be done from home?
Well, I don't know if we have any
I mean,
option. I
I'm-
mean, right now, we don't, I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
We
we
don't
have,
have
I would
any
think as a Board of
options.
Education, we could say in Brunswick County, all teachers will work from home.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
just for the next.
Yes.
To get that traffic out of the school is few people.
Are you talking about like,
For the next
In
week.
other words,
for one
you're
week
still
until they-
trying to
thought we were
provide
doing that.
lunch.
They have that option, and most of them have
I
exercised
thought we
that
were doing
option.
that. They just had the option to do that.
They have the
Correct.
option to do that.
But we
Most
didn't
of-
mandate.
Many of them are going to school.
because they
Yeah.
think they
Right.
have to be at school to be paid.
Well, I don't know if they
No,
think
they
that
don't.
necessarily.
They just
Okay.
don't.
But they are having to be approved to work at home.
Correct.
I mean, it's
Right.
not a blanket effect.
Right.
They
They
have
have to
to,
request.
each individual teacher has to be approved
Has to
to work
request
from
that.
home.
And that's pretty much a given.
That's- yeah.
Which, let me ask
I
another
wonder how
thing
many,
about.
how many do we know how many are doing that right
I
now?
don't know. Meetings and so forth. The meeting you have scheduled for the 31st on budget,
Yes.
is that more of an informational meeting than anything else?
It's at the request of our operations department because they wish to continue with our capital projects for as long as we can. Priority one being that new middle school, keep things going as long as we can so that it is ready to open on time. They're also wanting, while our government offices are open, to move forward with our bond projects. They've bid these projects so that we can start the north and the west. You know, again, this is on a day-to-day basis, decision-making. So as we get closer to the 31st, if we find that we can't continue the work or the contractors can't get their supplies, we may have to revisit this. But at present, our operations department is asking that we continue on with our track of moving forward with our bond projects.
Well, my only reason I raise that question is to cut down on the meetings. I don't know how urgent that is versus doing a work session prior to the regular board meeting in April.
He wants it to go to the county commissioners meeting the day before our meeting. That's the whole purpose of
Yes.
the meeting on the 31st.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know how dire that is.
We can go, Superintendent and I were discussing this morning, we may have to go back, and I think he wishes maybe to go back and really revisit what is absolutely essential with that plan,
Yeah.
and maybe scale back.
Correct. Correct.
Can't imagine us even talking about budget either with this going on until we know what's happening, how we gonna budget for next year, if we could end up being virtual or something else. Like, it would be putting off for 30 days be crazy.
I think we've got to go, like we've said a while ago, day by day, and the
Yeah.
guidelines are changing every day.
Every day.
And no matter what we do, we've got to follow the guidelines that the governor and the president and everybody else has set for us, and
And then,
we just go day by day. I mean,
and we still have to be proactive as much as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
we truly do,
yeah.
because we don't generally get very far without a plan. And, but like you said, Mrs. Cook, knowing that things are so unstable at this time with regard to what's going to happen in the future.
We're not going to flatten the curve
No.
by having meetings and
Exactly,
requiring teachers to go to schools.
exactly.
So
No, we're not.
we've got to do what's right and what we're being told.
Can Jerry provide, instead of doing a form, can we put everybody home, that's teachers home, and get all the professional development in the system, on the online system this week, so that next week we don't need a form, we just get completion notification when they're done with it. We just give them a week's worth of professional development to do at home, that when we'll get alerted, right, when they're complete with their professional development, we know they did a week's worth of work, we don't need a form because they completed.
Or can they complete the form electronically?
That's what we're doing.
You're doing it
It
electronically?
can be done electronically. They don't have to come in.
They don't
and
have to go to
They
the
can take a
school.
picture of it and send it as an email.
Okay, cool.
But I do know that it has been a deterrent to some teachers, because they feel like by the time they complete the forms, that they could have been doing other things. And that was my question to Mr. Foster earlier about, was it, some teachers have the idea that it was per hour. What are you doing hour 1, hour 2, hour 3? And that was my question to Mr. Foster earlier. So if we could just kind of, I'm not saying ignore the form, I'm just saying be a little lenient with regard to some of the items that have been asked for, because we do have an awesome group of teachers, and they're gonna do what's required of them, and many, many of them are gonna go beyond what's
Right.
required of them.
Principals and supervisors have been advised through me repeatedly to provide as much flexibility in accommodating teachers in these requests as we possibly can. So with that, if the request is made, I don't think there's gonna, I'm pretty much sure there won't be any denials as it comes to the request for remote working, because we've opened it up to, if you are, of course, in the most acceptable demographic for the virus, or if you have childcare issues, or if you're sick yourself, or if you just want to be away from, we have various means of communicating that and having reasons for folks wanting to be at home.
And I'm kind of like you, Helen. I mean, this is not a time for micromanagement.
Not at all.
And, all of our employees here at the school system, I'm talking to cafeteria workers, everybody,
Yes.
they know their job. They're going to do their job. So don't keep a finger on them for every hour they're supposed to be doing
Right.
something.
Madam Chair, can I?
Yes, please.
So with that in mind, with exactly what you're talking about, to minimize the burden, they have put an example on that form. It's 3 lines for a day. That's it. What did I do from 8 to 10? Very minimum. This shouldn't take any employee more than a minute to complete for their whole entire day. But it's exactly what you folks are implying, that we don't want to micromanage. That is not the intent of this. But just to have some record, and also for our payroll folks to know, yeah, this, now we know that this person was working remotely for 5 days, so that we can make sure that we generate
And this could
pay.
help later in the instructional questions too with the state or whoever.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Ms. Cahill. If we could just make sure that the principals are communicating this to
We
their
will do that.
staff, so that we go back to that term consistency again, because some are communicating and it's being interpreted totally different from what others are communicating.
Conversation too.
So if we could just make sure that they are communicating on the same wavelengths.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we have it set up, I know with online teaching and that, when somebody's logged in, and I know as a system, we probably don't have that set up. So in other words, when a teacher's online, when they're online. If somebody's, I don't even know what that's called, but obviously when people work online from home, they know when they're logged in. And I know that's probably another whole level of technical.
Through Google, they have.
But anyway, that's, in the long run. But the thing about it is the teachers, they've really got an advantage in this situation with pay, because people that are shutting down retail stores, restaurants, those people aren't gonna have unemployment benefits
Right.
like the teachers are gonna have. So they're really in a good place, long-term, whatever happens, because, I lost my part-time job this week, or my hours. I can't file unemployment, so there's a lot of people out there that are gonna be, in a lot worse shape, for whatever period of time we're talking about. But, long-term, like you say, you've got webinars, you can do the teachers, Zoom, whatever, all those online things, but it's a learning curve.
Go back to what I said earlier, it's a day by day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Day by day.
So I'm still not understanding this form. It says date worked, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. But in the 1, 2, the date can be the same date in multiple lines?
Yes.
Yes, the example above there, do you see that example?
Why don't we just go to one line? Date.
What I did today.
I worked with children online, done. Because the unfair thing about this is trying to keep up with it. You got teachers who are working with kids over the weekend with Google Docs, and when kids respond to them Saturday about something they're doing, they go right back there and work with them. So rather than holding them to any more standard than saying I'm working online, I don't see the point, to be honest with you. Treat them as professionals like they are, and let's be
But
done
this
with
is
it.
used for anybody that's working from home, it's not just teachers. This is to be considered for anyone.
Anybody who qualifies to work at home.
That could be
Well,
anybody.
But as managers, like for my department, I'm not trying to micromanage what they're working on, but at the same time, I need to know that the work is getting done that still needs to get done. And this is a way for me, not to micromanage, but to know that the work.
All you can do at
that
this
we're
point,
spending-
and let's say I'm a principal and I've got X number of teachers, all I can do now is trust them that they're doing the best they can with the kids who are contacting them in their classroom. That
It
can-
Yeah,
would be
certified and
fine.
classified, there may be a little bit of a distinction.
Well, I'm talking about teachers right now.
Yeah.
And it would be fine if they just completed one line, if they said, March 11th, 2020, I did online instruction and put the whole day. That's all they have to put. But if there are 2 or 3 different things that they do in a day.
They choose to do it that way, fine.
as well.
They're not gonna be held.
The form is,
There won't be any
the form's out
penalty
there.
if they don't, I mean,
Right.
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Were you gonna talk to this form, Jerry?
Form?
Resolution?
Okay, are we finished with the discussion and announcements at this time? Okay. So we now are looking at action items, a resolution to grant emergency powers to the superintendent, and
May I make a couple comments, very quickly? I've got a really important
Who's
person.
that guy?
I don't know him.
State your
Who
name,
let him in here?
state your name,
Keep my
full,
distance.
spell it slowly.
Yeah, it's Ed, I won't bother, you know. First off, Mr. Superintendent, you're wearing the colors of my university. And also, for the first time ever, I've seen you wear a pair of black socks instead of the lavender or the pink. or
No
the
happy
yellow.
socks.
That's your compliance, thank
All
you.
right.
No happy socks.
Let me commend you as a group for looking at putting forth a resolution for granting emergency powers to the superintendent. As you know, I went through several hurricanes, and some of you know that I ran the operations side at the state level for the National Guard. And the National Guard one was really interesting in that the governor put out a letter to my adjutant general, who in turn handed me the letter that said, here's what you can do. And it was based on the needs of the state. And I had to justify what I did. But I called it 3,000 guardsmen just off of that letter. And I bought 300 chainsaws off of that letter without having to go through the bureaucracy of going through the finance people and putting the contracts out. Then Florence shows up. And all of you are in different areas of the county, and with Florence, we had 3 islands that nobody could, you just couldn't get around and talk. And we ended up with 3 really big disasters with water at Town Creek, Bolivia, and Cedar Grove. And Freya will tell you, and I wish Sue were here because she could back it up. We had to go out and get ServPro to come into those 3 schools immediately, or we were going to have mold issues. We were going to have more extensive damage than we did, and that contract was like $1 million. And knowing that I didn't go to you, the board, to say to do it, we were in a state of emergency. The county was telling us what to do, us being the school system. And then the justification came, I went back to you, the board, and said, here's what we've got to do. And individually, you, the board, said, do it. It helps Jerry, Dr. Oates, if you put this resolution down so that, yes, he's going to have to justify what he's doing and how he's doing it and how much he's going to spend and those sorts of things in the long run. But sometimes when you're dealing with our county, and the school system has the most opportunities to help our county in times like this. I was talking to Chief Miller just a little while ago. If we do, and if this pandemic continues and our hospitals get overrun, where will we go? You're going to have nobody sitting down here at Supply that's going to go to Supply Elementary. You've got Dozier sitting over here in Southport that's going to go to Southport Elementary, because that's where the the resources are. That's where the buildings are. Dr. Oates is going to have to say yea or nay very quickly and what he can or can't do. I mean, he mentioned the phone calls. He was supposed to be sitting in a phone call at 11 o'clock with the county commissioners, with emergency management, all the municipalities in our county, as well as those support elements such as the fire, rescue, and this is just commonplace that we do. And oftentimes during those meetings, now I know we're not in a state of emergency yet, but if we continue, we will be shortly. Oftentimes in those meetings, a directive comes out of emergency management, which is agreed upon with the county commissioners real quick, that says, school system, we need you to do this. And he's going to need that backing to be able to do that. And in turn, he goes to you and he says, here's what I've had to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I need you to back me on. Oftentimes, you know, he's not going to have that opportunity to say, call a board meeting or even do a telephonic conferencing with you guys to say, here's what I want. And part of that telephonic conferencing is you know, you got to put the announcement out that we're having the meeting, and that takes a little while before you can. So looking at what you're doing with this emergency powers resolution is something that I think is well worth the time, well worth the effort, and I hope that you pass that resolution. And it's not giving him power that he doesn't already have. It's not taking away your oversight for resources, because he's going to have to justify what he does. It just gives him the opportunity to make those decisions very quickly. And I've heard every one of you say, we don't know where we're going. And we don't. I mean, this is something totally different. We know how to do hurricanes very easily. I mean, we don't want them again, but we can do them. And the decision at the hurricane piece is primarily an operational, but now you're talking about kids' lives, you're talking about parents' lives, and you're talking about operation. So as you continue this discussion, please know that this is not something that takes away any power that you have individually or collectively, and oversight individually or collectively. All it does is gives him the opportunity to make decisions in a timely and appropriate manner and justify to you what he's doing. So thank you for the opportunity. And again, I apologize. I do have a personal issue that I've got to deal with very quickly. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Dr. Oates, do you need to be a part of that phone call?
Okay.
You know, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I've looked over it, and exactly what Les said is exactly right. I mean, things evolve so quickly, and you know, and I don't know that we're going to end up in a self-quarantine or be told everybody has to stay home, mandated to stay home for a certain amount of time. That can happen. And if that happens, we're not going to have board meetings. The only thing that I would recommend to change would be to, on number 3, the authority to enter in contracts without board approval for any dollar amount would be upon a declared state of emergency, that Jerry be allowed to do that. You know, if we've been mandated to stay home, we're not going to be able to come to a meeting. And do we need to adjust? I mean, he has up to, I think, $100,000 now spending. Do we just need to increase that amount by a certain percentage? It's just my thoughts.
I think it definitely needs to be increased. Now, the percentage amount.
And let me say, it's not that I don't trust Jerry Oates.
No,
I do,
no,
100%.
absolutely.
But we do have to have oversight,
Right.
and I know he would inform all 5 of us
Yes.
before he did anything.
Can I say that I'm opposed to this, and I completely, for one reason. Jerry has all the power with no oversight. The whole purpose of us being elected is for oversight, not that we don't trust Jerry. I would instead of this resolution say that we should appoint a member like Charlie, who's on property here in Bolivia all the time, and allow them board authority as if we were entering into a contract for a sale where they can negotiate on behalf of the board. There's still oversight. Charlie would still look at everything, but it's one phone call from Jerry to Charlie. Charlie can make a decision on behalf of the board, which boards do regularly. When we enter into contracts or negotiations with a lawsuit, we could appoint a board member to go with our attorney to do that specific job. And I would rather, it keeps somebody who's elected to still have that oversight, somebody from our board. Charlie's got 15 years, he works here, I mean, and he can also push back if the governor puts down some crazy request that's gonna cost us $50 million. That gives somebody other than superintendent to say, no, we're not going to do this or comply, because we don't know where this is going, what craziness is gonna happen next. You know, they closed restaurants down and pretty much sank them out of business now in a week. And, you know, they're still questioning whether that's even a legal action he took. And I just want to put that out there that I think that that's a problem. I mean, we can't leave unlimited dollar amounts. Obviously, I know Jerry's going to keep us informed. Number two, he's already done this. He did the food program without our authority, changed the work schedules without our authority. So everything in number two, except for the school calendar, they're doing already. So, I mean, think about all the decisions staff made over the week. All of these, everything in number two, except for calendars, they've already done without our approval, as is. So, I mean, the oversight over a property was the same way with electronics. They were out in kids' hands before we found it, you know, before I found out at least about it. The food was already scheduled and the press release was done by the time I found out we were feeding on Sunday afternoon. So these decisions are already being done. It's just the money amount and the authority of oversight. And I think if we just allot our authority over to one member, we can allow one member to make the decisions, and it doesn't stop the process. If Jerry gets a call, he can call Charlie, and just like that, he can get an answer.
May I be heard?
Please.
Madam Chair, this resolution, I've researched it backwards and forwards. I got it yesterday from North Carolina School Board Association. This is, of course, Allison Schaefer and primarily Judy Murphy. Just for the board's information, every statute or policy in there, I'm now handing out so that if there are any questions or anybody wants to do any further research on it, here it is. Okay. For your point of view also. I've been in touch with Tori yesterday, and she has been really helpful in getting this out. The last policy, the 2450, suspension of board policies, if I should add that I was really pleased to walk in here 2 minutes late, but to see that all 5 board members were here, because one of the provisions here, the 2450, says that it says, provided, however, that in no case may any policy be suspended by less than a majority of the entire board. So you could do it with a 2/3 vote of the board members present. However, you'd have to have 3 votes to constitute a majority of the board. I don't see anything in here. You trust your superintendent, it's clear. I don't see anything in here. He's required to report any decisions back to the board. I'm not suggesting, Charlie, that your suggestion is not a good suggestion. I am saying that these are serious times, and serious times require serious action. And I think that's what this temporary resolution attempts to do.
Could we legally give one member, just like we would do?
I don't think he would want that responsibility.
And
That's
you
why
know,
it's called a board.
yeah, and.
Well, you're giving all 5 members votes to one person.
No,
You are, and you are temporarily giving all board power to Jerry. He can suspend any policy, as per this resolution. He can suspend policy, make calendar approvals. Of course, he's going to eventually have to talk to us, and I trust Jerry to do it. But the people gave 5 of us this power because this is too much decision-making possibility for one person.
Well,
And
you
that's
just-
why the statute was developed in this way.
Well, let me answer that question. That's really a question to the board. But we don't know what next week is going to hold. We don't know what next month's
We
going to
may
hold.
be quarantined at home.
We all may be quarantined. And
We
so,
can telecommute that in.
well, I don't know that you can. Then we're going to get into an issue of whether you've had an illegal meeting.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you don't trust your superintendent, then don't vote for this. But it's clear to me, as long as I've been here and Jerry's been here, that you do trust your superintendent. These are times which require sometimes immediate action, and you just simply can't put together a majority of the board to do that at times. I mean, we all may be sick in a month.
Well, and as I said earlier, before I left home, I was listening to the news, and California is sheltering in place now, the entire state. So what does that tell us in the event? I mean, it can change daily, as we've all said here.
Let me ask this, do we actually have to have a resolution for this, or can we just,
No, you do
We
need a
just-
resolution because you're giving the
I mean, as far
superintendent-
as what, I mean, if the general statute's already outlined,
Well, the last statute that I mentioned, 2450, well, it's actually the policy, but it refers to General Statute 115C-36. You need a resolution because
Okay.
you are giving the superintendent authority to suspend the policy, and this is a unusual, serious action, but again, those are the times, unfortunately, within which we live in.
Well,
Okay,
on the second page of the resolution where it says, now it be further resolved that the superintendent is directed to keep the Board of Education informed of any and all actions taken under this emergency authority as soon as practical in line with the circumstances. I mean, he's going to keep us informed.
it does it anyway.
You know, the county commissioners pretty much did the same thing the other night with the county manager. A couple of towns have done the same thing yesterday at town board meetings, giving the mayor the emergency authority to make decisions and keep their board informed. Like I said again, it's day by day, y'all. We all may not be here tomorrow, may be stuck in our houses, so.
Well, another question I had, as far as the date, I mean, we're only talking 10 days. If we do this and then I mean, is it
Could it be
advisable to
extended
put
at
a further date at
It's-
this point? Or do we have to come back and make another resolution? If you're only talking about 10 days, I mean, I was,
From the date of the thing.
We're talking
so
next
it
week.
says
is
through
all we're
March
talking.
30th, which would be ending on
Unless it
March 30th. Is
changes.
that not what,
Unless- yeah,
that would
could
Unless it
change.
changes.
We're talking
I mean, I would-
we're talking 1 week.
Right, that's what I'm saying, if we're doing this now and then we can't meet, could we not put the date out to May 1st or June 1st?
You
Or,
certainly can do that.
I mean, because if this is only gonna go
Well,
through
we have
the 30th
we have
of
another
March,
board meeting scheduled for April 7th,
then we have to,
which is a date that makes more sense on here.
Well,
than this.
yeah, right, April the 7th would be fine.
I'm gonna make, Madam Chair, I'm gonna make a motion that we accept this resolution with a couple of changes. One being that it go through April 7th, which is our next board meeting, that the school calendar be stricken, anything related to the school calendar, and the authority to enter contracts be moved from 100,000 to 250. And I make a motion with those changes that we adopt this resolution.
So I have a motion by Mr. Lemon that the date change through April 7th, and the school calendar information be stricken from the resolution, and that the dollar amount be increased from the current 100,000 to 250,000. That is the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Miller seconded.
any discussion?
Any discussion among?
Well, after listening to Colonel Tubbs, you know, and I know we're not in a hurricane situation, but when he had said he had to make $1 million contract decisions, like, you know, I'm wondering if $250,000, I know it's more than normal, but That's not a lot of money. If you're talking, I mean, I don't know what kind of disasters we're looking at. I mean, I don't know, you know, we're not going in and having to fix buildings. The buildings are okay. I'm just wondering, you know, if that's substantial enough for what we're talking. I mean, we're not doing remediation, we're not doing everything. I mean, I'm wondering if $500,000 is not too much over the top. I mean, I just don't know.
Nobody knows. Kathy.
Nobody knows, I know, but I'm saying if y'all are comfortable with that, but you know, that's my only thought.
Are you comfortable with that?
I am.
Okay.
What kind of policies would we need to suspend, that we need to give away the right to suspend policies for? I mean,
Well, we don't know at this time.
I mean, they're all there presumably for a reason.
Well, as you said, all the items under
Kind of.
2, they had to
They did anyway.
emergency, they had to go ahead and address without a meeting anyway, so.
Right, which is clearly under our authority, because we wouldn't have to give it away.
But I don't want to give away modification to the school calendar.
Neither do
The
I.
other things I know they're going to have to do on a daily basis and maybe change on a daily basis.
I mean, does that clearly state it's a temporary policy?
It's just through April 7th.
Well, I mean, the policy, suspending policy would be a temporary until the expiration of this, could we add language to that? That is?
Well, until the.
We could-
Excuse me, until the resolution expires.
So any suspension or changes of policies would be only effective until the resolution expires?
Correct.
He makes.
Absolutely. Just through April 7th.
That's 2 weeks.
That's
Yes.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking it needs to be further out in date, but I don't know if that's.
Well, we have a
that
meeting scheduled in, but
Okay.
if something happens, we don't, then how could we extend it if we needed to, if our meeting's canceled on
Like
the
if we had
7th?
an emergency meeting to extend the emergency resolution.
Like we did for ServPro, we
What's the
did that.
protocol?
Well, we'd have to advertise, but I think at that point in time, we could do a telephone conference, as long as the press is, that conference is available to the press and the public, of course.
I mean, I just wonder how much, I mean, anything that's we're gonna give you the authority through April the 7th, what difference would it do to go through May the 1st or something? I mean, and that way we're covered
If we don't have a meeting.
if we weren't able to meet.
And I would agree with Catherine, because, again, we don't know where this is going to take us.
What's the next meeting date, post April 7th?
May, that first Tuesday in May, is that correct, Charlie? What
Yeah,
is it?
it'd be May the
Well, it'd be
5th.
2 weeks after the 7th, it would be the curriculum.
Well, that's true.
Well, that's true.
We could just
Oh,
move this
yeah.
whole authority of spending up to 250 and not do a resolution. That's the other thing we could do, is just do a
Plus the
policy.
date of the
I think
committees.
we're all right with the 7th. to be
May
honest.
5th, the meeting,
May the 5th, would be
the
Yeah,
meeting.
7th seems fine. Let's take this slow and see how it goes.
I mean, it just,
I'm half worried about what the governor and them are gonna do
I'm
at
not
the
sure
end
you have
of
to
April
spend any
1st.
extra money particularly.
No, and I don't think so. I mean, we're good on food. I mean, you know, even like Les said, God, I hope it don't get to this, but what if our hospitals fill up and they need space for, I mean, there's a lot of variables that we just don't know
Absolutely.
about. This is all new territory.
And there's going to be more and more unemployment,
Yeah.
because this affects that. and that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Let me just say this, as far as some of the things that may come, if it gets to a worsening situation. There has been communication from the state regarding turning our schools into daycares, particularly for the children of first responders, hospital staff, those types of things, which is within the realm of possibility. Again, we don't know. So these types of situations is what I'm looking at. As far as spending money, right now, I don't see that being an issue. We have, with Larry Smith and Sue and the operations folks, as far as disinfecting, they were way proactive a long time ago in securing material for doing that. During the hurricane, yes, we had to make sure on a moment's notice that we got someone to get the water out. We don't have to worry about now having someone to come in and disinfect schools. We are doing that as we go. So as far as seeing any disbursement of funds for that, I think that's slim to none. My concern is about the utilization of schools in the event situation worsens, and being able to make that call to state or our local officials that our buildings are open and we can utilize everything that needs to be done there with this. That's the only piece I see in this
They
resolution.
can compel them anyway, can they not?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Only in certain situations, but they can compel them. So really, it's not even, any of this doesn't matter because ultimately they can compel the building from us. So what's the point of the resolution at that point? We're passing something for no reason, I mean, other than the increase of money, which I would have gladly given you anyway. Like, if we need to go up to 250 for Jerry, that's fine. Why don't we just increase the policy to 250?
Rick, what do you recommend as an attorney? You don't see any problem in the resolution, right?
No, I don't see any problem, putting it up to 250. I mean, that is a board decision, as you said, Charlie. Maybe it's overkill, but we just don't know what's, this is beyond a Florence. And, or it could be. So 250, I think, is fine, and we have enough time if things get real bad. We could convene another emergency meeting and/or wait until we do the committee meetings or the general meeting in May. So I think 250 is fine.
Another question, resolution versus just authorizing that figure to go up. Prefer the resolution
Well, we could
versus
amend
no
we could
or
amend
just
the
amending
resolution, sure. Or redo the resolution depending on how circumstances may change.
No, she's saying do the resolution or just up his
Or just
spending
up as
ability.
money spending, the policy. Just do-
Resolution or no resolution at all.
Either way. I mean, since we're here, we're talking about it, you
Yeah, but he's already said
incorporate
he's
that
not concerned about
money
the
limit
money.
in
It's
that
other
resolution, just like
things.
Charlie said.
So-
Or, no, you said, Kevin.
Okay, so it appears we have a motion on the table, as I stated earlier. All discussion
Now,
completed?
did we change
So we
the
want to
date from
change-
April the 7th to May?
May the 5th.
It's still at
Oh.
April the 7th. The
That
motion.
motion was April 7th.
Uh-huh.
And strike the calendar.
So
you wanna
The
move
motion
to-
was April 7th, strike the calendar part and
250.
raise the amount of money the superintendent can spend without
Right.
approval
Okay.
to 250. That was that motion.
Are we gonna give them
So
a
that's-
building?
You
wanna change the date?
So if we want to make changes, do we vote and then not vote?
Well, we can
Or just
amend that
it,
motion
amend
if we
that?
need
On the
to.
7th, yeah.
So
So
do,
what is suggested, amended to May 1?
or whenever the
May
next
5th.
board meeting.
That was April 7th.
We have two between here and there, right? Or are we
okay.
gonna suspend the 31st one, right?
Well, there was mention of the committee meetings and then the
Regular, the
board.
next
regular
scheduled
board meeting in May. Okay.
The May meeting is
So
May
the
5th.
May 5th? You want to amend it to May 5th, the motion to May 5th?
That'd be fine.
Through May 5th.
So everything else will stay the same, except change the date to May the 5th,
Mhm.
modification of the school calendar strike, and the amount of money is will be 250.
The motion's on the table, discussion's complete.
Second. Need a second.
For the, okay, for the amendment, okay.
Charlie second, okay.
Mhm. And at this time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I heard 4 ayes and 1 abstain. I didn't hear you, did you vote?
I did not. I
So
am,
you abstained?
yes.
Okay. All right, so majority carries, motion carried, and,
Madam Chair, I make a motion we adjourn.
Oh, one minute, Mr. Foster, please make sure that our TAs and other folks know the procedures. I mean, I got a text from a TA that is unclear on what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
Just please make sure that that's communicated.
and that goes back to the principals, as we said earlier. Make sure the principals are communicating consistently.
That's the key, consistency right now.
Okay, Mr. Lemon has made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Ms. Cook has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for being here.